Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Emerge Stronger. I am here with my co host, Melody, and today we are talking about emotional affairs and why they feel worse than physical affairs. This is a heavy topic, Melody. You ready to
Mm,
dive in?
I am. I am.
All right, let's talk about it. So, a lot of times and it sounds crazy, but some people recover better they recover easier from a one night stand than they do from an emotional affair. It's betrayal can be so deep, but sometimes it just feels so much deeper when it's emotional. Why
Mhm.
is that?
So there are different areas of connection that we have in a relationship, or, some people would call it attraction, but there are different areas that we connect in. But the most important connection is our emotional connection. There are going to be other things that fade over time. I would say emotional and spiritual are probably the strongest. I'm sure there's somebody out there that would not necessarily agree with me, and that's okay. But the emotional component is so important. And that's when you're emotionally connected, that gives the relationship the stability and the longevity that we desire in relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems as though, in a physical affair, like just that this physical connection and this physical contact could mean so much because you're giving, yourself to somebody else. But there's so much weight on the emotional part of it because the emotional part of it, it may not start physical. It
Mhm,
starts with this texting, this getting to know you, this
mhm,
sharing personal information,
mhm.
sharing secrets, things like that. That's where that connection starts
Yeah.
and then it grows into physical. But it
Mhm,
it hurts so much worse when you're sharing parts of yourself that
mhm.
you may not even share with your spouse.
Right. And there are definitely gender differences in some of this. And I know we're not supposed to say that there's gender differences, but there definitely are. There's a lot of men that will cheat, and they'll cheat physically, but they won't cheat emotionally. Uh,
Hmm.
they are far more capable of just doing the physical act of sex and walking away from a person. A woman is not as easily, not saying that there's never been women that have one night stands. There are, but it's just a lot easier just because of the way the man is made up versus how the women are more attracted to the emotional component. Again, not that men don't want the emotional component of the relationship. They do. That's where they feel safe and where they can share and they feel seen and safe and all of that. But men are primarily driven physically. We are hardwired to procreate. That's just a part of life. But men can connect better physically with a person and then be done than a woman can. And again, I know people will probably hate me for saying that, but that it is true. And that is another reason why men will struggle more with a physical affair than they will with an emotional affair, whereas women will struggle more with an emotional affair than they will the physical affair, because that emotional place, like this, the currency in a relationship for a woman is security. They want
Hmm.
security. And so if there's another person potentially taking their place, that like turns their world, the woman's world, upside down, because like, okay, this will shift my whole life. I'll have to make sure I can provide for my children. And then, like we were talking earlier about the woman that you met, she remarried, and then her second husband preyed on her children. And there's so many things that come into play whenever a woman feels threatened emotionally by somebody else coming into her husband's life.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to ask a question, and it's going to seem it's not necessarily an easy question to answer. But I think that knowing what we know in the work that we've done, we've just seen different ways. But how do people, and I guess own personal experiences as well, how do people find themselves in an emotional affair?
I don't think that anybody wakes up in the morning and says, "Hey, I want to connect with somebody." I think that it is, you might find the person attractive or you might not find the person attractive at all. But when you begin to share things about yourself with the other person, like if you come into work and you're frustrated and somebody says, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" "Oh, I'm just frustrated because My husband made me mad this morning. Oh, I'm sorry. And then you just start slowly but surely connecting. It could be because of some type of common bond, like you both recently lost your parents, or you have the same kind of dog. I mean, it's just small things like that. People don't typically say, oh, let me destroy my spouse's life, which we've said in other episodes, but I believe it to be fundamentally true. Nobody tries to blow up their life, but they start feeling safe with this person. Maybe your wife, I just had this conversation with my hair girl. She's like, I'm so frustrated because I'm the only person that ever picks up around the house. And so I tell my husband, man, you're like another kid. You know, your side of the bed or your side of the room is so trashy and stuff like that. And so she's like, I hate that he makes me that person. That's what she's telling me. And if she's saying those types of things to him, and this person that he's working with, she says, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, you're so smart, and all of that. This person at work doesn't live day to day with this man, right? And know that she's saying things, the other person is saying things that begin to feel good. He might feel safer with her. She doesn't gripe at him about leaving his socks on the floor and all of that. And I'm not saying that we can't have complaints in relationship. It does matter how you voice that complaint. So if you're like, you're just another kid, that's critical, that's attacking his character and all of that. But if that other person isn't doing that, and makes you feel safe, then before you know it, you can have feelings for a person that you never really even intended. And you may not necessarily be overly attracted, but if somebody makes you feel emotionally safe, it's like the attractiveness points, physical attraction, kind of the points will go up, because you make me feel emotionally safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's just such a tremendous amount of awareness that has to happen on both sides. On the spouse that's nagging at her husband, or the husband that's emotionally disconnected from their wife. And then on the other side, just the spouse that is talking to people, talking to the opposite sex. Like there's just so much awareness that has to happen on both sides to prevent this emotional getting into these emotional affairs. There's more to it than just that.
Yeah.
But you do have to have so much awareness and just being like, what are your morals? What are your values? Being connected with yourself, knowing who you are. And there's a lot that plays into it.
Yeah. Overall, if we had to categorize why people get into an emotional affair, it's either going to be because of unmet needs or pain that they're experiencing in their relationship with their spouse. And maybe all of that can fall under unmet needs in one way or another. But again, people don't just say, oh, I'm going to start an affair today. It might be completely innocent in the beginning, but then as time goes on, they start crossing boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to talk about a little bit. Sometimes these emotional affairs, the one spouse can hide it from the other spouse, and over time, well, the truth always comes out. Number one, but the secrecy is just damaging trust in your relationship more than you realize.
And I
Because
think,
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, you think that you're good at keeping it, but the reason it's damaging trust is because you're hiding these conversations. You're thinking that, oh, if I just delete these messages, nobody's going to find out. But really, over time, you're left with a tremendous amount of guilt that it's not doing you any favors. It's not doing your marriage any favor. So anyway, go ahead.
And as much as we think that we are really good at hiding what's going on, there are very few people that can actually hide what's going on. We are creatures of habit. We do the same things all the time. And when we begin to deviate from our patterns, people will take notice. Maybe not right at first, but over time, wait a minute, all of a sudden her phone is always face down, or she's going to the bathroom phone and staying in there for 30 minutes. What's going on with that? Or she typically gets home at 5:30. She's not getting home until closer 6:30 now. So what's going on there? So there could be a lot of things that or habits that we begin to deviate from, and we think nobody notices, but they do. And often, like even in affairs at the workplace, because that is a big one. The majority of people meet their affair partner in the workplace, not always, but most of the time. And they are going to lunch together. They're spending a little bit too much time in each other's offices. Even the body language, people will start reading into it. And I remember when I did work at a credit union, I knew that these two people were having an affair. It was very evident. It was very, very evident. And she did eventually confess, but like the girl eventually confessed to me that her and this other person were having an affair. And I was like, oh man, I just don't think that's a good idea. Ultimately, she doesn't work there anymore and has moved on to another job and all of that. But other people, you hear the whispering at the water cooler and stuff like that
Hmm.
about. So you can try to hide it, but you can't really ever hide it. And eventually, like you said earlier, it comes out. And then what you begin to create is this distrust. And then every
Yeah.
time you touch your phone, your spouse is thinking, are they talking to somebody else? So, and there are different reasons. I mean, especially with online affairs, because there's a lot of them, there are different reasons why sometimes people will do that in order to escape whatever they're going through, to kind of fill the void of maybe some unmet needs. Maybe they need the ego stroke and all of that. But ultimately, that secrecy is going to create insecurities in your spouse, and it's going to be problematic for your relationship. And I know people call it micro cheating and all that. I feel like sometimes we will say that to make ourselves feel better about the situation, but anything that erodes at the emotional connection or the emotional safety in a relationship is a wrong relationship for you to be in.
You kind of alluded to it earlier. The emotional affair partner doesn't know that you leave the socks on the floor in the morning. They don't have that insight into your everyday life. And so let's talk a little bit about just why these emotional affairs are more fantasy than reality. It's
Mhm.
not, the affair partner is just seeing this curated version of you. It's, they're not dealing with the bills and the parenting and the stress and the routines and all of that. And so it's like you're just stuck in this fantasy world.
Yeah. And here's the deal, we tend to be on our best behavior with people that we don't know as well. Oh, it should kind of be the opposite. Not that we should treat strangers poorly. We shouldn't do that, but we should be more mindful of how we're acting with the people that we love the most instead of people that we're not as close to. And so what happens is that person is seeing a version of you that is not, it's like the mask. I'm letting them see what I want them to see in me.
Hmm.
And so then and that's both ways. So if it's a woman that's married and they're talking to a man and he wants to pursue her and she wants something from him, and I mean it could be emotional connection, it could be the attention that her husband isn't giving her at home or whatever, but we tend to show up, and that happens in most of our relationships. We don't go on the first date and like, oh, I really have problems with picking up my socks, oh, I really have problems with anger. We don't do that. We talk about our accomplishments and all those things. And so your spouse is getting kind of more of the mask removed, and this other person. And then if you're saying I'm this and I'm that, that other person is going to be caught up in the fantasy. And so are you, because they're only revealing so much. You're not spending there's nothing like, you will get to know a person if you live with that person. You will. I mean, you will. I've often said my husband's morning routine drives me crazy because he's loud in the morning. And I'm a very quiet person in the morning. I'm a very quiet person anyway, but I'm more quiet, even more quiet in the morning. And I would have never known that about him until we got married and we started living with each other. I didn't think that, oh, he's super loud in the morning, he's going to get on my nerves. In the beginning I was like, oh, he's amazing, he's wonderful, he all that kind of thing. So it is fantasy, and sometimes we do want people just to believe the best of us, but ultimately we're all flawed, and the fantasy, it can keep you caught up in it for a while, but eventually people see through that. They see you're
Yeah.
going to argue. Conflict is normal in any type of relationship that you have, even with coworkers, but conflict is, it's going to come up, and so you're using this thing to escape. Also, if it's painful for the spouse, whoever is caught up in the fantasy with somebody else, it's painful for the spouse, but it may be painful for the other person that you're having this fantasy with, because if they think that you are going to leave their spouse, they might be hoping and holding out and closing the door to other opportunities and all that. And if you don't ever have an intention of leaving your spouse, then you're actually hurting two people, and actually then you're hurting three people, because you are
Yeah.
not living consistently with your belief system, and that causes disharmony within you, and you hate that. Not to mention any kids that may be involved and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I think that that's where a lot of people, when when they find themselves in those situations, they're not thinking about anybody else but themselves.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they don't realize how it affects so many
Hmm.
more people than just
Hmm.
yourself. So,
Right.
yeah. Many emotional affairs are built on depth, are not built on depth. They're built on escape, validation, and
Hmm.
fantasy.
Yep.
So, okay, let's talk about oh gosh, this one's really tough because you find your spouse in an emotional affair and you immediately think, what's wrong with me? What did I
Hmm.
do?
Yeah. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty
Yeah.
enough. I'm not enough. That person is so much better than me. I mean, my husband did tell me that there were aspects of her that reminded him of me, and I was like, "We are not the same." I mean, that made me mad when he said that. But yeah, it happens to whether you're male or female. It's like you feel like you kind of go into a competition with the other
Mhm.
person. It's not a competition, but it does create those wounds of that person is better than me. Why am I not good enough for you to talk to? Why am I not good enough for you to experience that with? Why are you sharing things with him or her that you're not sharing with me? Now, there are reasons for all of that, and we've already hit on some of them, but we don't have to go into it again. But you create deep wounds because you begin to compare yourself to the other person. One of the biggest gifts I gave myself is stop doing that. And it was hard to do that. But ultimately, my prayer became, God, help me see her the way that you see her. Like,
Mm,
and it did change my heart towards her. But then I just started thinking about, he isn't giving his full heart to her, nor is he giving his full heart to me. He really is pulled in between the two of us. And so there was a couple of thoughts, and I'd only believe that God helped me see this, was that she must not believe that she is worth having a full man. That she's willing to accept parts of him. Now it's a little bit different on my end, because I did believe that I deserved a full man, and I once had one. His heart did at one time belong to me. So it was a little bit different situation in mine. But with her, I was like, yeah, she's broken. Because most people don't say, hey, I want to go get half of a man from a family. And so I had to recognize that she had brokenness in her life.
absolutely. And I remember telling clients when they would come to me and they're in the thick of it and just finding out that their spouse has had an affair is there's so much brokenness all around. Healed people don't like it, just like we said earlier. You don't just wake up one day and be like, I want to hurt my spouse.
Yeah.
Healed people don't wake up and say, I'm going to have an affair today. I'm going to
Hmm.
completely blow up my marriage. You're
Hmm.
coming from so much brokenness, so much
Hmm.
insecurity, so much that you don't know about yourself and your identity. Healed people don't do that. People that have their morals and values and their alignment with the Lord do not do those things.
Hmm.
There's so much within internally brokenness within inside that person that causes them to do those things. Just like I guess I would say, even for like a totally healed person that's right with the Lord, has a relationship with the Lord, doesn't decide to just go intoxicate themselves with drugs and
Hmm.
alcohol. There's a reason why. There's brokenness behind that.
Yeah. Definitely so, 100%. And it's just funny that when you yourself, as the betrayed spouse, so I'll put myself in that position. When I was comparing myself to the other person, I was caught up in it and like trying to like outdo her in ways, and that's where I got a lot of things wrong. But when I turned and started asking God to help me heal from the situation, help me not compare myself to her, help me do my part, all of that changed. Like I didn't see like I was able to see that she was in pain too, and that's why she was doing it. Like my whole perception just completely changed. And now with both me and David, like we've both said, we don't know if we would ever marry again if like one of us were to pass away, just because there's many reasons. We don't have to go into that. But if we see somebody that we might think they're physically attractive, they're not really attractive. It's just like, oh, they're handsome or they're pretty or something like that. Because we've worked on the emotional piece. Well, I should say, first we've worked on our relationship with God, and then we worked on the emotional piece. And so we feel fulfilled. It took time to get there. Like we had to go through hell to actually get there. And just the other day, we had taken Layla out to dinner at a local restaurant, and this waitress, she was sweet. She was the sweetest little waitress. She was, I don't know, probably late 20s or something like that. Blonde hair, blue eyes, shapely, outgoing. She was just really beautiful. And she was talking to me. She wasn't talking to my husband. She was talking to me a lot. And she was asking me questions because she hadn't lived here long and all that. And when she walked away, Layla said, "Oh, she's really sweet." And I said, "Yes. And she's also your daddy's type." And he was like, "Wait a minute. Why are you bringing me into this?" He said, "I have all I need right here. I don't need anything else. I'm good." So when our hearts are right with God and we have cultivated the emotional relationship with our spouse, we do feel that way. But she was his type,
Okay,
100%.
okay, but I have to say this for the people that are listening that have never actually seen you and they've only heard you, you have blonde hair and blue eyes. So let's get that let's
Yeah.
get that
I'm
straight.
also his type.
You
Yeah.
are also his type. Okay, yeah.
Yes. I'm definitely also his type. He definitely has a type for sure. But anyway, but I did say at the end, "You can't come to lunch here, just so you know." And it's like, "I don't even like this place. You are the one that said, let's go here." It's like, I know, but we're just got to be clear.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Okay, I want to hit on one more topic, and we may need to come back for a part two because I feel like we have so much more to talk about. But let's try to get through this one really quick. I feel like we are in so much, and this is why you have to just have like this security and this stronghold on your marriage and on your family, because right now technology is normalizing all of this wickedness
Right.
and it's just making it worse. And I can't even tell you how many times working with clients is it happened on Facebook.
Yeah.
He or she found an old high school friend, and that's how they started their emotional affair. Or maybe this emotional affair turned physical.
Mm-hmm.
Or gaming. I remember
Mm-hmm.
having a couple clients that's how they met their affair partner was through gaming. And these are
Yeah.
grown men and women. Grown woman found her affair partner through gaming. So it's just so dangerous. And I think that just technology has tried to normalize these affairs because it's like, oh, let's slide into DMs, let's use
Yeah.
Snapchat. I personally feel that no grown adult should have Snapchat because these Snapchat messages disappear. Like
Yeah.
I don't like Snapchat. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
or just saying like language like, oh, we're just friends. It's just a high
Mm-hmm.
school friend, or it's pretty bad.
Yeah. I think that if there's any relationship that you have that your spouse doesn't know about, it's dangerous. Well, it could be even the same sex these days. I mean, it definitely can be. But if you have where you're texting and communicating on a regular basis and your spouse doesn't know it, that's going to be problematic in your relationship. Because even your spouse might look at a text and it might be out of context, take it out of
Mm-hmm.
context. Or
Mm-hmm.
so I have a client that this is one of the things. She's like a ball of sunshine. I just love her so much. But she is she's friends because the field that she works in is just it's nothing but men. And so she's friends with a lot of men. But she said, "I will never be friends with the guy if I'm not friends with his wife." Because
Yeah.
I don't ever want the other person to think that I'm after their man. She's like, "I've seen it too
Mm-hmm.
much in this industry." And she said, "I don't ever want to make a woman feel insecure about my presence because she is a beautiful girl. She is outgoing. She's bubbly and all that. People can't help but be attracted to her." And so she's like, "I just don't ever want any of my guy friends or whatever, their wives, to think. And so when she texts them for whatever reason, even if it's something for work, she tags the wife in it too. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, I bet those wives love you because you are above board on that. That is such a good strategy. And again, you may not, it may be an old friend from school and everything, but especially if you ever had feelings for a person before, you can rekindle that again if you
Hmm.
start emotional investment. And I just want to say this: if you have to delete the text because you're concerned that your spouse might see it, you have a problem already. Like,
Yeah.
just stop having communication with the person because it's just not going to go well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. All right. We'll be back next week for part 2 on emotional affairs.
Okay.
If you have been faced with infidelity in your marriage, first of all, we want to say we're so sorry, and we are here to support you any way we can. We have created a guide that's going to help you through this journey, and it's what to do when your spouse has emotionally checked out. It's what to do and what not to do. And so please visit our website at itsnotover.net to download this free guide. Or if you'd like to schedule a coaching session with us, you can also visit itsnotover.net and book a session with either myself, Melody, or one of the other coaches. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week for part 2.